You can go to the Patreon link in the description of this video to receive instant access to the entire course with either a Tier 2 or 3 subscription, or by purchasing the course individually. In this video, in our beginner course, we'll be looking at how to change the strings on our steel guitar. So let's get started. So what we're going to need is our string winder and our wire cutters, or some people call them dikes. So a basic string winder will look like this, and there's different brands. What that's going to do though, it has a handle, and then this bottom part will actually turn independently of the handle. That's going to make it a lot easier on you, a lot faster than trying to wind the keys with your hands. So really it's a small investment and be well worth your money to get you a good string winder. And then the next one will obviously be that since we're dealing with a wire string and the length of it is actually longer than we need, we'll need to get rid of the excess by cutting it off. And you'll need a pretty good size set of dikes or wire cutters, because this last string, this 10th string, is going to either normally be like a 36 or 38 gauge string. So you'll need a set of wire cutters that can handle that. And what you'll do there, if you try to cut those big strings with a smaller pair of dikes or wire cutters, you'll end up just pitting this cutting blade or marring it. So go ahead and invest in you a good set. And again, it's probably not, you're not looking at much money in that, and it'll last you forever. So that's the two things that we'll need to get started with. Okay, so let's look at the string removal, or taking the string off the guitar. So you're either dealing with taking an old string off, like what we're going to do, or you've broken a string and you're replacing it because of that. We have the key head here, and normally the string will be attached to the key. So what you want to do, if you've broken the string, normally this part will still be on, the wraps will still be left on the key. Now in this instance, we're dealing with an old string. So what you want to do is you take your string winder, you place it on the key. Now what you want to be careful of here is that you're either loosening or tightening this string depending on which way you're turning it. Now, two ways to check that is you can either play the string and listen to it, and in which case I'm going clockwise with this string winder. That's bringing the tension up on the string. So what you want to make sure you're being careful is not to do that, in that we're trying to get it off and that you might break it. Another thing you can do is you can simply place your finger or your hand on the string you're dealing with, and you can feel that as you loosen that string, you can actually feel the tension releasing, and I can physically see my hand going down. Whereas if I'm tightening, I can physically see my hand coming up. My hand being my right hand is what I'm talking about. So just be careful of that. Make sure you're loosening that string. Okay, so that will entail just simply taking the string all the way off, all the winds that are on the key, we're taking that off and pulling it out. So I'll go ahead and do that. You get it down to where there's no tension on the string, it's loose, at which time I can take and just simply unroll it like this if I want to with my hand, take it completely off. Or I can use the mechanical means and just keep unwinding it with a string winder. That's totally up to you, okay? So as you get it down to the last wind where it went through the hole, you simply pull it out. And like I said on some of the outset too, you got to realize it's, if you want to call it stored energy, this string is under tension even when it's completely loose. So just hold on to it so it doesn't fly off and, could injure you. I guess it could poke you with that sharp end or whatever, so be careful with that. Just hold on to it. So now on this changer end of the guitar, we've got two things you normally will deal with. When you release the tension off the string on the key head, on the keys, sometimes this string will simply pop out. It'll come out by itself, in which case, like I said a while ago, just you make sure you're holding on to it. But if it didn't pop out, I'll put it back real quick and let you see. You'll simply need to grab it like this and push down on it. Now what you'll have here, and I'll talk about it too also when I reinstall the string, it depends on this mechanism. Sometimes, like in this one, you have like a little channel that this ball actually fits in. or you may have a pin down there that this ball fits on. So it depends on your guitar. This is probably a pretty common way, the way this guitar is set up. So you just simply need to release that string, get it out. Okay, now the other thing I talked about a while ago is if this string is broken, in other words, you're not removing an old string completely, it broke on you. You want to make sure that this ball end, that's what this is called right here, that you account for that. And what I mean by that, just think of it like a surgeon when they do surgery. They've got to account for every scalpel and every sponge. Because if this ball end is broken and falls into the mechanism, which I've had it happen to me before, it can actually foul out this mechanism and get hung up in here in the changer. So when you break one, a lot of times they'll fall straight down to the floor, and you want to just make sure you see that. You physically account for that and get it. If not, get you a flashlight sometimes and you can look down inside this mechanism, or you can even look down around the nylon tuners and that string fell straight down in there when it broke. But most time, like I said, when it goes well, if it breaks, it goes straight to the floor. So just make sure you account for that. I used several different brands, and there's no product endorsement. There's Diodario, SIT, Jaguar. I've used Mangum strings. So that, that's totally up to you. And just as an aside, you'll find that different strings fit your guitar better. So let's look at, you'll get different tones depending on what brand you're using. So let's look at how they're packaged with the Diodario, which is what I'm going back with on this E9 neck on this guitar this time. They come in a box, and that initial box has a packet inside. All the strings are in this packet. Now the way they present their product is that they group these strings in twos, and they're color coordinated. So you need to, if you get this type of string, make sure you hang on to the box, because on the box it gives you the instructions, how they're coded and what placement they will be on the guitar. So if you're looking at your guitar and you're sitting behind the guitar, the farther from you, the farthest toward the front, is the first string. Now you can see that on this back neck here also, that this would be the first string. The string closest to your body would be the 10th. So if you're saying it's applicable up here, this would be the first string toward the top. The bigger string, or the 10th string, would be toward the bottom. Now as you get a string out, and it doesn't matter, I'll just pull one out as a reference, one pack of these. There's two parts to the string. So you have a ball end, which is simply this part right here. And then you have the other end, which is plain by itself. That's what's going to actually go through the key head. So the ball end will be attached to the changer end of the guitar. And we'll show that too as we do it. So the next thing too, in all the packaging, and I'll show you another string here with this Mangum. They may come individually packaged. Each one may have its own individual paper packet, but when you pull them out, they're going to look the same. So that brings me to my next point, in that you have a stored energy, if you want to refer to it that way. This is coiled up, so when you uncoil it, it's going to come loose, so you want to make sure you're careful with that. It could injure you, it could poke you in the eye. So make sure you're either wearing your glasses or you're really careful when you unwind this string, because it's stored energy. So let's look at putting the string on now. I normally take it, hold it in my hand, take the ball end, which is this end, and you'll notice that it's wrapped around itself. So I'll simply look at it, make sure I'm unwinding it the right way. Normally it's about 3 wraps. And then I'll simply start pulling this loop out like that, and the whole string has come unwound. So simply hold on to it. It's not a lot of energy in that wrapping, but it's enough to come loose and maybe hurt you. So be careful with it. And then after we get it unwound, keep up with what number it is, and we'll install it on our guitar. All right, so let's install the string. So like we said at the outset, you have on your changer mechanism, the changer finger that is closest to you will be the 10th string or the biggest string. Okay, then also we said that on our string, the physical string itself, we've got two ends. We have an end that has a ball, like this, and that's what this is, and you have a plain end or a straight end. Now, depending on your guitar, it'll depend on how it receives this string. On mine, on this Mullins, there's actually a slot for this ball to go in, to ride in. So when you install on this type of guitar, you want to make sure that the ball is straight on like this. In other words, it's not to the side where you can see the hole in it. It's like that. So that would simply come around, go in into that receptacle, and you pull up and you feel tension on it. And I normally will just keep lifting on the string to keep it engaged in there so it doesn't pop out like that. So you just make sure that the ball is straight like this. This is how it's going to go in. Bring it around, put it into the slot, lift up. Now if your guitar happens to have like a brass looking pin here, then that pin will actually go through the hole of this string, this ball here. The pin would be out. You would put the hole over the pin and engage it like that. And just right off the top of my head, I don't remember which brands. I've had a couple of guitars like that. Those, to me, are a little harder to try to keep the ball on and without it popping off. But it's doable. You can do that. You know, you can get them on. So with this one, make sure the ball is straight on. Put it in a slot, lift up, hold tension on it. And also another thing I try to do is that on this mechanism, on this changer mechanism, I normally try to align that string physically in the middle. In other words, I don't put it over here. I try to come right through the middle, right in line with that slot. So now that we've got the string on this end of the guitar, let's look at the key end, or the left side, and we'll see how to measure the distance, and we'll see how to wind it onto the key. All right, so now we're going to do the completion of installing our first string. So we've got the string attached to the changer end, and I've got to hold tension on it. So with my right hand, I'm holding tension so it doesn't pop out on the changer end. Now we want to determine, this is going to be the 10th string, the last string or the biggest string, or the string closest to your body. All right, this would be the key for that string. So it goes 1, this is 1, comes around to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is the 10th string key. Now I want to determine the length of the string, because I have an excessive amount, and they do that on purpose. They give you an opportunity in case you need more, which in this instance, we're going to right here. There's no way that I'm going to wind all this string on here, so I'm going to have to make a cut on it. Now, just as a rule of thumb for me, I know the string is going right here. I go 2 keys past it. So I'm going to this 8th key. I'm looking at that, and that's where I'm going to make my cut, right here. Now, even at that, that's still a little long, but obviously you'd rather have it too long than too short. So this is where I'm going, the 10th key. This is the 10th string. I'm going to count back 2 keys. Just simply grab it with my thumb and index, hold it. All right, so now we're going to need our wire cutters. Okay, so I've got my wire cutters. I made my measurement. I'm going to hold it now like this. Make sure it's pointed away from you, because when you clip it, it could spring loose. So it's pointing away from my body. I'm going to make the cut. Okay, and you can actually hear it take off. So just be careful with that. You don't want to have anybody around you or any of your animals around you when you're doing that, just in case it comes off. It might hurt them. Okay, so now I've cut that, and I can see that it's pretty close to that distance. I'm going to install it in this key. Now for that, you're going to need your string winder. What I do normally is I'll turn that key around to where I can see the hole in it. Okay, because the end is actually going to go through that hole. Okay, like that. Now what you want to do here is you want to be careful, because here what you're dealing with on my guitar, I have a lacquered finished guitar. If you run this string through here too long, and when you make a wrap, that string's going to come around and it's going to mar, or it's going to scratch this finish on your guitar. And even if it's a Formica guitar or whatever, you still don't want it to do that. So I normally will run that string through just where I can just see it coming through, maybe just 1/8 of an inch. Go ahead and tighten it up a little bit. Even at that, then I can bring it back. Here I can see it a little better. I can pull it back out a little bit. So it's just coming clear. And then I go ahead and hold tension on it with my right hand. And it's right to tight it. So I'm going clockwise. Now, this brings us into another aspect. On the Mullins website, they're suggesting that you go over the top of the string to kind of bind it down or pinch it down. I've done it both ways, and I really don't have any string breakage either way. So you can do it like this, which is kind of how they're suggesting to do it. We're actually wound over the top of that string when I come through the string, through the hole on the key. So that's one way to do it. And then I simply bring it on tight, and don't tighten it up too much. Just bring it till it's taut and it's staying on here. I look at too, I try to line that string with the windings where it's pretty much in line with your roller nuts here, because that string is resting in this groove. I'll unwind a little bit so you can see it better. But it's actually riding in this roller. So to me, mechanically, I'm thinking that the straighter everything is, probably the better, the easier it'll be on the pulls, and the intonation will be better too. So that's just a quick overview of how to attach the string, what to look for here. So you want to make sure you cut the distance, normally 2 keys past. When you put it through the actual hole of the key, make sure you don't feed too much of that string through, because when you go to wrap it around, if it's too long, it'll actually come into contact with the guitar body and scratch it. Then make sure it's riding in the roller. The roller has a groove in it. Make sure the string's riding in that. And then actually when you wind it, you've got a clockwise, counterclockwise. Just make sure it's taking up the tension, and keep those winds uniformed as they're feeding onto this shaft here. So I think that's a pretty good overview of that, and that should be able to help you when you go to change your strings. All right, so let me show you one more thing you might encounter on this changer end of the guitar. When you release the strings, or you've taken the strings off, or in the other instance the string is broken, these fingers may actually move, and that's nothing uncommon. So what happens is that you've released the tension off the string, these fingers will actually come back in contact sometimes with this part of the end plate. So let me show you here, just as a for instance on this 3rd string, I can physically move that changer with my hand. So it's released, there's no tension on the string. As you tighten up, or as you pick up tension with your hand, you'll see that move. So don't be concerned with that. That's a common thing, in occurrence. And some of the strings will do it. Like you'll see right here, this part of the changer hasn't really moved much, but this one has actually come to rest back all the way around. So as you tighten up, you'll see that changer move, and that's also giving you an indication of how tight you're getting the string. So if you see that, don't be concerned. Just go ahead and tighten your string up pretty close to pitch, and then get your tuner and finish the job tuning it up. All right, so let's look at when you go to dispose of your old strings. In the past, I actually worked, my parents had a music store, and they would want to save the old strings maybe for a spare to use. I really don't see any sense in doing that, in that if you're changing out an older string, a lot of times when you're raising and lowering with a steel guitar especially, the strings go dead and they've either, you're changing them for that reason or you've broken a string. So I'm going to say just you're discarding the string. So I get it off the guitar, normally pick it up. I'll take it and actually wind it back up like this. I'll just take it on my hand, loop it, simply wind it back. Then you can take either end, like we talked about a while ago. You have a ball end and a plain end. And then I'll simply wrap it around itself like that, you know, 2 or 3 times just to keep it from coming undone. Okay, then you can also, if you want to, since you've got normally the packaging that it come in, you can take that package and just simply put it back in there like that. It's going to be trash, you know, it's not got to be like a Christmas package, and it got to be pretty. And just dispose of that. So now you've got the string back in the packet, the old string, and you've got the packing, then you can get rid of that too. So that's just an easy way to do it. Or if you're changing all 10 of your strings, I'll normally just leave them laying on the floor as I'm removing them. I simply gather all 10 of the strings up and just do what I did with the single string. I wrap all 10 of them up in a bundle and then normally put that either in the packet or put it back in the box and dispose of them. So again, just, you know, I don't really see any reason to save these, because once you unwind the tension off of them, that's normally the end of the life of a string. So just dispose of them, and that's an easy way to do that. Now that we've changed the strings on our steel guitar, we'll look at how to tune the strings and the pedals in the next video. But first, if you'd like to support the channel, the best way to do that would be by joining our Patreon site. But you can also support us by clicking the join, like, or subscribe buttons below. We just want to take this opportunity to thank our supporters on YouTube and Patreon, especially our Tier 3 supporters, Jim, M. Medlock, William, Philip, Arthur, and Douglas. So thanks again, and keep picking.